produced hundreds of live events and completed dozens of church and venue installations. Whatever your AV needs are, Lighthouse Streaming has you covered. Give them a call at 254-252-4206. That's 254-252-4206. Or go to lighthousestreaming.com and set up your free consultation.
NSJ Event Co., one of the premier event designers in Central Texas and a Centex Sports Network supporter. Voted Waco Awards Event Planner of the Year 2021, NSJ Event Co. is your go-to source for event planning. Whether it's your next baby shower, birthday bash, wedding, or retirement party, NSJ Event Co. will bring out the elegance, class, and style your event deserves. Call NSJ Event Co. at the number on the screen or scan the QR code to schedule a free consultation. NSJ Event Co., where the party lady takes care of all your event needs.
Hey guys, it's Rocky and Keisha, and at Prosperity Tax Service, we're all about convenience. We get it. Life is busy. Your time is valuable. That's why we've streamlined the entire process to be as hassle-free as possible.
No more sifting through piles of paperwork or spending hours at an office. With Prosperity Tax Service, you can handle your taxes from the comfort of your own home.
Your financial data is in safe hands with us through our secure and user-friendly customer portal at prosperitytax.com. It's your one-stop shop for all things tax-related. Log in anytime, from anywhere, whether it's from your couch or on the go.
We are experienced tax professionals, well-versed in handling a variety of tax situations. Receive genuine assistance and competitive pricing from real tax professionals who've seen it all.
We're marking 2 decades as a community-based enterprise here in Waco, Texas. So call us at 254-235-5662 or log on to www.prosperitytax.com. Thanks, guys.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into Centex Primetime. I am your host, Jalen Gillis, here on this Thursday afternoon / Thursday evening, getting ready to take you through the hot topics in sports, not just in the Central Texas area, but from all around the nation. Happy Thursday to everybody, or happy Friday Eve to everybody out there. Like I say all the time, some of you guys working that 4-day work week, it is your weekend officially, just now clocking out of work. Some of you guys on your way to work, wherever you're going or traveling to, want to thank you for tuning in to Centex Prime Time here today. We got a full show ahead of us here today, folks. Got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and some of their departures. They've lost coaches and players. How do they get back going and get back to another Super Bowl? We'll talk about some NFL draft prospects here today, as we've got a couple of months, about a month and a half really, until we get to the NFL draft, and I cannot wait to be able to break down some more and more of this NFL draft as we get further and further into the offseason. We got to talk about some NBA action. Everyone saw LeBron dunking on Mark Williams, who almost became a Laker, who was a Laker for about a few hours, honestly, and then sent him right back to Charlotte. Well, LeBron sent him on his way with a poster dunk yesterday. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Lakers and their struggles, Luka and his struggles. And the NBA is back tonight. Most of the teams back in action here tonight, as the NBA is back from All-Star break in about 45 minutes or so. Boston versus Philly coming on. I'm not sure how Philly keeps getting TV games, but nonetheless, they give them TV games. Got some more games coming up here tonight. I'll give you guys some of my props that I like for tonight as well. So we got a full show ahead of us. We got plenty to talk about here today on Centex Primetime. Joining us today for a conversation, as he is most weeks here, the play-by-play man for La Vega Pirate football, a friend of the show, and most importantly, an Eagles fan who gets to put it in everybody's face for a couple of weeks, couple of months while they're on top right now. Mr. Said Igerhart joining us. Said, what's going on?
Yeah, I was saying, you said a couple of weeks, man. We got about a month of this stuff, man. Yeah.
I tried to shorten your time a little bit. Yeah, all the way until that next Super Bowl is how long I get to talk. You know what it is. But, yeah, like I said, folks, we got Said coming on here with us as we get to talk about a few of these topics here today. And we're going to jump right into it, folks. Philadelphia Eagles. Super Bowl champs, sitting on top of the world right now. But they've got some immediate decisions to make right away if they want to be able to get back to the Super Bowl. This team, most of their stars are under contract. Lane Johnson under contract. Jordan Mailata under contract. Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley. Smitty. A.J. Brown. Most of those guys are under contract. They got a lot of young dudes on the defensive side of the ball, so they're all under contract. Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, all of these guys. But they've got some key free agents coming up, and I want to talk about that, especially while we got Said on here today. Talk about some of these guys that are getting ready to be free agents, and the Eagles have some decisions to make. Howie Roseman has done a phenomenal job so far this year, not just this year, but since he's really been over the Eagles player personnel decision-making, he's been doing a great job. Now, they got some real decisions to make this upcoming offseason. They're going to get a boost from the NFL because the NFL cap is about to go up about $22 million. So they're going to get a little bit of help, but there's going to be guys looking for some big contracts. Guys like Zach Bond. Zach Bond made the All-Pro team this year. He came in on a prove-it deal, and he proved it as much as you could prove it. Came in and played phenomenal, made All-Pro, made the Pro Bowl, played great in the Super Bowl, the whole 9 yards. Mekhi Becton, one of Howie Roseman's best pickups, I think, in last offseason because this is a guy that was tossed to the side. He was a first-round pick, a lot of potential and a lot of promise coming into the league, coming out of Louisville. Huge left tackle. Just couldn't get it right at left tackle. He battled through some injuries. He had some times where he played great, where he played good as well at that left tackle spot when he was in New York at the Jets. But as we know, the Jets is a hard place for any young player to develop and get good because we've got 20, 30, 40 years of history that shows us that. Mekhi Becton comes over here, switches over to left guard, takes some of that pressure off of him of having to be protecting the blind side of the quarterback and get to come in and fit in with a great offensive line, and he fit in perfectly. There's guys like Josh Sweat, who's a DN, who is up this year, and Josh Sweat played really the game of his life. Him and the other free agent I'm going to talk about played one of their best games in the biggest game of the year, and that's the Super Bowl. Josh Sweat was dominant in this Super Bowl run. He didn't have some of the gaudy numbers throughout the regular season, but in the playoffs and especially in the Super Bowl, he stepped up in a huge way. He's going to be looking to get paid. And the last one is Milton Williams, a guy that a lot of people forget about until the Super Bowl. He dominated. Everybody knows about Jalen Carter. Obviously, he's been playing phenomenal all year long, an All-Pro. Everybody knows about Jordan Davis, one of the best run-stuffing D tackles in the league. But Milton Williams not only is great in the run, but he's great in creating pressure from up the middle, and he's been great for this Eagles team since they drafted him. Another great draft pick by Howie Roseman, and some of these guys are just now coming up for their contract. So, Said, man, how do the Eagles go about this offseason? I know they're going to get a little bit more money, but they got a lot of guys in the contract, and I just named about 3 or 4 guys that were pivotal in their Super Bowl run this year. So how do they approach coming into this offseason?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that you want to do is you want to bring back Becton. You want to keep that big offensive line intact the way it is. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, offensive line in the entire league. So you definitely want to bring Becton back. And then I also think you want to do something with Bond. Now I don't know if he played extremely well, mm-hmm. But this is the only place that he's really done that. So maybe he might want to take into account the environment and the scheme. And how much did that attributed to his success? And maybe kind of get us a little bit of a break on his deal. Now, the one thing about it is, you talked about Milton Williams. Mm-hmm. You can bring back Milton Williams by getting rid of. You can move on from Slay and Bradbury because of the great youth you have at corner. With Mitchell and Dijon playing at a high level so early on, and they're mm-hmm. first year they're rookies. So I think by moving on from those veteran corners, you can create enough room to bring in Williams on the deal as well. And then Josh Sweat, I think you just kind of have to just let him walk. If he's not willing to take a team-friendly deal, which he shouldn't be willing to be. I always say if you got leverage, use your leverage.
Yeah.
But but you got to be. I think you'd be willing to part ways with guys like Josh Sweat and Devontae Maddox and, Britton Colby, Kenneth Gainwell. You can replace guys like this, through free agency and the draft, because neither one of these guys are particularly standouts, with maybe the exception of Sweat.
Yeah. Besides Slay and Josh Sweat, maybe none of those guys are just huge, big names. Like you said, now Zach Bond, that's an interesting one because this is the best year of his career. So they could negotiate on, hey, you've only played like this once. Or Zach Bond and his team could say, hey, well, I just played at an all-pro level. I deserve to get paid at an all-pro level. So that's going to be a really interesting one when that time comes up. I agree with you. I think first and foremost, you got to get Becton back in there. Becton is a young guy that hasn't played a lot of football because he's been hurt a lot of the times. You get him in there, you get him off of that stress of playing left tackle. They are by far the biggest offensive line, like you said, in the league, man. I mean, the smallest guy is Cam Jurgens, and he's like 6'3", 300. And that's the smallest guy. So you keep that intact by bringing in Mekhi Becton. I think they can get him on a pretty good deal. I don't think a lot of teams are going to come out and try to give him, $50, $60, $70 million when he really just played only like this season. So I think they can get him back on a pretty friendly deal. And then the Josh Sweat one, I agree with you. You got to let Josh Sweat walk. He did play phenomenal in the Super Bowl. But Howie Roseman has shown, man, this dude can draft. Like, get back in the draft in what is a pretty good draft for defensive linemen and for pass rushers coming up this year. Obviously, he's not going to be able to get the Abdul Carters, or maybe he won't be able to get another Georgia guy and Mykel Williams. But there's still some really good guys, and we'll talk about the draft a little bit later. There's still some really good guys at that defensive line position coming out in the draft this year. So I'd look out to see Howie Roseman go out and try to find another lineman to replace Josh Sweat coming into this next year. But the Mekhi Becton one is important, man, because you found a recipe that works with Jalen Hurts. That's your biggest asset, in my opinion, because you got to be able to protect him. And when he's playing well, we've seen what they can do. They can not only win the Super Bowl, they can dominate the playoffs. So you got to go out and you got to be able to re-sign guys in the offensive line, keep those weapons there. You got AJ on the contract. You got Smitty on the contract. You got Saquon on the contract. And obviously Kenneth Gainwell is a guy that's going to leave. He helped him out in times where Saquon was either getting some rest or games that Saquon didn't play. But they can find another guy to come in for Kenneth Gainwell. So I agree with you for the most part as far as those guys they need to bring back. Do you see them trying to make any splashes in free agency and maybe replace some of those guys and get some guys on maybe some prove-it deals like they did with Becton and Zach Bond this year?
I think the only free agent, in my opinion, right now that would be well, he's not even a free agent. But the only splash move that I think they would be able to have an out game. So like I said, that would have to be a trade. In terms of free agents out there, I don't really know if there's anything because there's no glaring weaknesses in this roster. You know what I mean? In terms of position, maybe strong safety, but and free safety, with T.J. Gardner-Johnson and Blankenship. I'm not a big fan of Blankenship, but so maybe something there. But then again, if that's your only hole, if you're pretty solid every other space around them, then Vic Fangio has already shown he has a way of being able to cover up those weaknesses by playing to his strengths. So and the fact that the Eagles have they have 7 picks in the draft. They have 3 in the 5th. So their last pick is 169 in the 5th round. So they're going to be able, the way Howard Roseman drafts, they're going to be able to identify a couple of quality players in the draft. He always does. So I don't think that they want to waste any money bringing in another player. I think they want to just focus on retaining the ones.
Yeah, I agree. There's not really a lot of guys that, and your mic kind of messed up a little bit towards the end there, but you spoke a little bit about Vic Fangio and what he can do with the defense. Wanted to talk a little bit about the loss of Kellen Moore, because this is a guy that came in and helped lead this team. I know they got to the Super Bowl their first time, or their first time in this tenure or this regime, with Shane Steichen as their offensive coordinator. He left and went to Indianapolis. The next year they kind of struggled. Now they bring in Kellen Moore to come in, and the offense plays great again. Kellen Moore is now gone, and he's the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. How do the Eagles feel about replacing Kellen Moore? And they just lost Nusselmeyer as well. Kellen Moore's taking him over to the Saints with him. So how do you feel about how the Eagles can replace Kellen Moore, and is this offense still going to be humming with Kellen Moore being out?
Humming at the same way. Okay, I think the Kellen Moore coming in this year was impactful, but the most impactful move was Saquon Barkley. For sure. So, you got Saquon Barkley, you got Jalen Hurts with all his full complement of weapons in that big line. I don't think you don't need a genius offensive coordinator to come in here. This is going to be the fifth OC, under Sirianni, and there was a culture there. So, and they're going to take the time. They're even talking about maybe promoting the passing game coordinator, doing something from within. That's always an option. Yeah. You don't need a genius offensive coordinator to come in here and call plays for the Eagles offense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the formula's there. Run the football, get the ball to 2-6. Let's do some play action, and let's do the QB sneak on the 1 yard line. I mean, the formula is out there. It's simple. If you can get after the pass, if you can get after the passer on defense like they did all season, if you can cover like they did with guys like Cooper DeJean and Mitchell as well, then the defense is going to do their job. Offense, just run the football. It's not rocket science. It's rocket science, like you said. You got the biggest offensive line. You got the best running back. There's your formula. It's not a lot you have to come up with. I think Kellen Moore did add some good wrinkles to it when it was needed, but honestly, most of the time it wasn't needed. They just had to run the football and play good defense. That's right. Their personnel is what helped them and what helped them excel to the top. Like you said, the biggest acquisition was Saquon Barkley, not Kellen Moore. Even though Kellen Moore did play a good part in that, and I'm interested to see how his run in New Orleans is going to go, because a lot of people didn't take that job for a reason. There's a lot of things going on in New Orleans, a lot of aging players, and they're already over the cap with a bunch of old guys getting paid a bunch of money, including Derek Carr that he came out in the draft with. So interested to see how that's going to go over there. But I agree with you. I think it's not going to be too tough for them to be able to replace Kellen Moore and what he brought to this team, because the personnel is still there. They can bring Becton back. I think they'll be fine. Saquon is still playing good. Jalen Hurts will be fine. Smitty and A.J. Brown, all these guys. The Eagles are going to be fine. So looking into the future a little bit, and obviously I already kind of know your answer, but how do you see this Eagles team shaping out next year? Is this a back-to-back type of thing? Do you see them having the same type of success? Or is this like maybe watch out for Detroit, maybe watch out for Washington? I know Dak said watch out for them, but I'm not even going to bring up the Cowboys. But maybe some of these other teams. Or do you see the Eagles being in prime position to be the favorites coming in the next year?
Favorites, yes, but we all know how hard it is to go back-to-back, right?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, Detroit, I'm sure they're going to show up their defense in the offseason through free agency and the draft. That was the reason why they kind of fell apart. The injury bug kind of just ran through that squad. Washington has the great young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, but they have a lot of free agency questions they have to look at as well.
For sure.
Now you can say, well, what about a Green Bay? Okay, maybe. I'll put it like this: if in the NFC, if you're asking me, is it Philadelphia or the field? I would say Philadelphia, but there's so many other factors like, the Rams. They're talking about maybe moving off of Matthew Stafford and things like that. Healthy 49ers come back, and you know what I mean? So there's always things that have to fall into place. But I absolutely do think that right now, as it currently stands, they are the favorite to go back to the Super Bowl representing the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely have to be the favorite. In my opinion, I know it's early, but it's Philly and it's Detroit. Commanders, can they repeat the success? That has to be seen. They've got a lot of money in free agency, but they got free agents as well. And there's now a script and a blueprint out for the Washington Commanders and for Jaden Daniels. Not saying that he's going to struggle, but people do have film on you now. They got a year's worth of film on what do you guys like to do? What does Cliff Kingsbury like to do with Jaden Daniels? So it's just going to be different. And then anybody else in there, I see Minnesota fall. I mean, shout out Minnesota, man. They had a great, phenomenal season, but you bring Sam Darnold back, I'm expecting to see the Sam Darnold we saw the last 3 weeks when he was playing football instead of the first 14, 15 weeks of when he was playing football. People have kind of figured out Brian Flores. I like what he's been doing. People have kind of figured out what Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell at least like to do. And they figured out the things that they don't like. So will they still be successful? Yeah. But I still see Detroit as the big dogs in that NFC North. The NFC West is just a complete and total wild card. We have no idea what's going to happen with them. It doesn't matter who gets good in the NFC South because none of the is going to be that good. Tampa Bay will probably win it again, but, are they going to be just – am I going to put them above the Eagles? Absolutely not. Or Detroit. Or I might not even put them above Washington Commanders either. So the NFC is still going to be represented by Philly and Detroit in my eyes. I want to go over to another team in the AFC that's got a lot of questions to answer as far as how they approach this offseason. That's the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they've got free agency. They got some free agents that are coming up, but they've got some 3 main guys that they got to take care of, and this is all blown back on Cincinnati. I said this on Tuesday on the show. Everything that's gonna go on in Cincinnati is all the front office and ownership's fault. You are notoriously cheap, and not just a little bit cheap. People say the Cowboys are notoriously cheap, but the Bengals are notoriously the cheapest out of anybody, not only in football, but almost in any major sports and any major sports franchise. The Bengals are extremely cheap. They got themselves into this problem. Jamar Chase sat out for an entire offseason plus preseason, saying, I want a new contract now. I don't want to wait in 2 years. And you said you're going to have to go out there and prove it that you're worth the money you're asking for, and he wins the Triple Crown. Now you're going to have to overpay Jamar Chase when you could have had him under contract last year. You don't know what you want to do with T. Higgins. I think they should have moved off T. Higgins, but T. Higgins is still a really great player for Cincinnati. I just don't think you can pay 2 guys that much money at the receiver position, especially when you've got holes on your defensive line and your offensive line and multiple other places. But you don't make a decision, and you franchise tag him. Now T. Higgins comes back out and has another good year. Now you have the same decision to make that you keep delaying the inevitable on making. To couple all that in, you don't want to give Trey Hendrickson an extension. He comes out and leads the league in sacks and makes an all-pro team. Like the Cincinnati Bengals have put themselves in a terrible position as far as their front office moving forward, because not only did you have the Triple Crown winner, not only did you have the passing yards leader in Joe Burrow, not only did you have the sack leader, but you didn't make the playoffs. This is literally the worst scenario you could have. You have 3 guys on your team go out and play the best that they could possibly play in the NFL that are coming up on deals. Joe Burrow's already under contract, but in a couple of years, he's going to need to re-up on his contract too. They do all of that, and then you don't make the playoffs. That's the worst case scenario, in my opinion, because now you're stuck. You have to get better, but you have to pay these guys. If you don't pay them, you're going to get worse. If you get worse, how are you going to keep a Jamar Chase? How are you going to keep a Joe Burrow? How are you going to be relevant in the AFC North, which we know is one of the toughest divisions? Thankfully, Cleveland's going to be sorry again, because if they were good, Cincinnati was going to be looking at last place in this division. So how do you see Cincinnati going into this offseason, and who do they need to sign? What decisions do they have to make, because they keep trying to avoid making decisions?
Well, the first thing they should have done was they should have learned when they went to the Super Bowl, when you had guys still on rookie contracts playing at a high level, okay, let's go ahead and do these guys now if we want to keep this window open, right? Yep. And so now you got these 3 guys coming up, and they all want huge deals, and they play, good enough to justify these huge deals. Like you said, Mike Brown is the cheapest owner in the history of the NFL, and what he did by, he likes to kick the can down the road a little bit, but at some point in time, the check's going to come due, and this is where we are right now. If you franchise T. Higgins, it'd still be $26 million for him to play on a 1-year deal. So to me, it seems like if there's one of the 3 that you have to kind of do without, it would be Higgins. But think about it like this, though. I think the best thing that happened to them was not making the playoffs last year, with all these players and they're healthy and playing at a high level, because now you see that your roster is really not that close. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you can justify maybe just let's just pay Chase, and we'll just take the other money and bring in a couple of veteran players and maybe get lucky on the draft. Things like maybe it's time to just go ahead and start retooling the thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Because even if they found a way to pay all three to come back for 1 year, they're not even guaranteed to be a playoff team.
Nope.
So the best thing that happened to them last year was not the fact that these guys played at an all-pro level, but was the fact that they played at an all-pro level and you still didn't make the playoffs. So there should be no outrage from anybody in the fan base if they decide to move on from anybody unless it's Chase.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Jamar Chase has to be the first person that you put pen to paper with and go ahead and get him an extension, because you gambled with him last year and he literally won the Triple Crown. There's not even that many Triple Crown winners in the history of the NFL, and you had one of them, and now you have to pay him. Most of those guys that do that, they were already on. Think about if the Rams had to pay Cooper Kupp after he did what he did. They'd still be having to pay for that right now. He was already on a deal. Now you're going to have to go in and just say whatever the highest record-setting number is, that's 100% exactly what Jamar Chase is going to do. At this point, I think you've got to move off of T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. T. Higgins, because you just can't pay – you're going to pay Jamar Chase $35 to $40 million, maybe $45 million. You're going to have to give Joe Burrow a new deal in a couple of years. T. Higgins, you can't afford to pay T. Higgins $30 million. And this is the situation that the 49ers got themselves into, because they were already paying a Deebo Samuel and Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, and then they got bullied into giving Brandon Ayuk money that he wasn't worth. He wasn't worth being paid $35 million a year. He's not that type of receiver. I don't think T. Higgins is that type of receiver. So you got to get off of him. And then Trey Hendrickson, he's been in the top league in sacks for the last 2 years, and he's playing phenomenal, but he's 30 years old. Are you going to give $150, $160 million to a 30-year-old? If you do, you're going to be like the New Orleans Saints paying Cam Jordan, how they've been stuck playing his giant contract, and he's 34, 35 years old. So I think in this scenario, like you said, you're not guaranteed to make the playoffs anyway, because you just had the league leader in passing and the Triple Crown winner and the leader in sacks that didn't make it. So you might as well move off those guys, figure out how to hit in the draft, and figure out how to pick up some key free agents, because you had a team that was right there for Super Bowl contention, but then you let guys like Jesse Bates walk because you don't want to pay him. You let guys like DJ Reader walk because you don't want to pay him. You let you pay Sam Hubbard on the other side of the defensive end when you shouldn't have done that. So they got decisions they have to make, but they're going to have to draft well, or the Cincinnati Bengals are done.
And on the bright side, if you're a Bengal fan, this is a deep draft for defensive end, for edge rushers. And if there's one position that makes the transition from college to pro more often than any other position, it's wide receiver. College wide receivers turn into decent pros really, really quickly these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I would definitely get in the draft, get a receiver. This is a great draft to get a receiver. This is a great draft to get a running back. This is a great draft to get a defensive lineman. And that's all the main needs that the Cincinnati Bengals need. They need all of those things really bad. They let Joe Mixon walk because they didn't want to keep paying him. And last year they had horrible running back production. If it wasn't for the Cowboys running back production being so bad, everybody would have talked about how terrible the Bengals running back production was. They traded for guys. That didn't work. They tried to sign guys off the street. That didn't work. So you've got to get in the draft. Like I said, super deep running back draft. You got to get in the draft, get a running back. You definitely need to get in the draft and get a receiver, and you've got to get in the draft and go address the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman as well, because Joe Burrow is your best asset. Him and Jamar Chase, that's what you got to protect, and that's who you have to give the most weapons to. The defensive side of the ball, y'all weren't stopping anybody with the league leader in sacks. So you just got to try to figure that one out. Let's get our main thing, which is the offense, get that solidified and get that and get that all sewed up. Before we move on to the draft, one more team I want to ask about. George Kittle came out and said that CMC is going to be angry on his comeback tour next year as he gets back into the league, and that team should watch out. Now, I can agree somewhat with that. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs whenever he's healthy. But more often than not, he's hurt, he's injured. I mean, it just is what it is. When he's playing, man, he is phenomenal. Can have one of the best seasons. We were just calling him one of the best running backs just 2 years ago when he was healthy because he was having a phenomenal season and they went all the way to the Super Bowl. He gets hurt again after people thought maybe he got over his injuries and maybe he's finally past that. He's clearly not past that. The 49ers probably have the worst training staff in NFL history because it seems like every other year the entire team gets hurt. I don't know how that happens or why that happens, but either they go to the Super Bowl, the next year the entire team will be hurt. Then they'll go to the Super Bowl, next year the whole team's hurt. So hopefully if they keep the trend up, they'll be back in the Super Bowl. But I don't know what's going on with their training staff. George Kittle thinks they're coming back. During this season, I asked the question on the show a couple of times, is the 49ers reign and era done? Because since Kyle Shanahan has been there, they've been one of the most competitive teams in the league. They've been to 2 Super Bowls with subpar quarterback play, in my opinion. They've been to multiple NFC championship games. But it seems like the injuries are finally catching up, and the money is finally catching up. Now you're stuck with Brandon Ayuk. That's why they're trying to get off Deebo Samuel. You restructured Trent Williams' contract, and then he got hurt after you paid him all the money. You paid Nick Bosa, but you're about to have to pay him again. Do you think the 49ers, first off, do you think that McCaffrey is going to come back and have a phenomenal season? And do you think that this 49ers era is over with?
I'm definitely not big on Christian McCaffrey. Just like you say, he's often injured, and he's not getting any younger. You know what I mean? So he's at the age, when the running backs get to around that 30 mark, your bodies get to breaking down, and you just don't bounce back from injuries the way that you used to when you're in your 20s. So I think he's definitely out of his prime. Now, can he be productive? Sure. He was still a dynamic player, but the days of seeing the old CMC, those days are over with. And now about this 49ers window, what happened to them was they didn't have the foresight to project 2-3 seasons ahead in terms of their finances. Mm-hmm. So, it's almost like a guy comes up, just throw him a fat deal. His guy's up, throw him a fat deal, without looking at the impact that it has. So now you have this convergence of your finances and injuries hitting at the same time. The guys that you pay are the guys who were hurt. So that's money that's not even doing you any good. So this doesn't have anything to do with Kyle Shanahan. Like you say, they've been very competitive since he's been there. He's one of the great, brilliant offensive minds in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But this is just a front office problem, and it's just a lack of future vision, plus just getting ravaged by the injury bug. Very unfortunate. It's just kind of like a perfect storm to kind of hit these guys. It'll take this franchise a good couple of seasons to kind of get back on its feet.
Yeah, I agree, man. Lynch has got a lot of decisions to make. Like you said, they gave a lot of guys deals, and I understand you're trying to win now, and a lot of the time it worked. They were winning. They just couldn't win the big one. If Emmanuel Sanders or if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't overthrow Emmanuel Sanders, they win that Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes the first time he won the Super Bowl. If Brock Purdy doesn't give the ball back or doesn't find a way to get a first down and only ends up kicking a field goal in overtime, then they win that Super Bowl. But they didn't. They got really close twice, weren't able to close the deal out, but now you're stuck. Now you've got to pay Brock Purdy a whole bunch of money, which I think is going to be the final straw on the camel's back. It's going to break the camel's back once they have to pay Brock Purdy because he clearly has shown he's not a game changer, and you're going to pay him $40, $50, maybe $60 million. You're going to cap strap yourself.
I don't think that they're trying to pay Brock Purdy. Just for the reason that you just stated, he's not a difference maker. Yeah. He's what they call a game manager. He's a system quarterback is what he is. He's a system quarterback. So you can find another. I mean, listen, this was literally the last guy picked in the draft. Yeah. So what you're telling me is, it's not hard to find guys like this. They're all over the place. It's our system. So I just can't see them justifying, especially with the cap distress that they have going on right now. I just can't see them trying to, give Brock Purdy a bag right now.
Yeah, I agree. They shouldn't. I'm 100% think they should not give Brock Purdy a contract. But I don't know. They like the guy. The guy's homegrown. Maybe they're thinking, we could do this. But if you can't get him on a team-friendly deal, You got to get rid of this guy for the reasons you just pointed out. You got him in the last pick in the draft. You mean to tell me you can't find another guy like that coming out in this year's draft? Now, I said this yesterday,
but,
and you could
but
go ahead.
even a team friendly deal would cost you at least $30 million.
Yeah, probably more like 40 or 45, because quarterbacks, the new contract's about to be around 65 million, 70 million.
Because the market is so high now. Yeah, you can't even afford a team friendly deal with this guy.
You can't. That'll ruin your team. You got to go out there and find somebody. Now, I said if they want to make one last hoorah at it, and I could be tripping, and I'll let you tell me if I am. Go and get Aaron Rodgers, man. Make one last hoorah. Put Rodgers in there. Get rid of Purdy. Find a way to get off Brock Purdy's contract. Get on Aaron Rodgers for one last hoorah, because Trent Williams, this is more than likely his last year. Christian McCaffrey, if he does play good, this will probably be his last year playing good. You're still going to have to come up with guys like Fred Warner. He's going to have to get paid eventually. Nick Bosa's going to have to get paid again. Man, if you want one last hoorah at this thing, I think you should go and get Aaron Rodgers and get off Brock Purdy. Get 1 year of Rodgers, and then from there try to figure out what you can do.
Yeah, I think you are tripping. Because the thing about Aaron Rodgers is, he's not number one, he was distraction, number one, with all this off the field stuff. But number two, I would rather bring in a guy. I'd rather bring in a Sam Darnold than to bring in an Aaron Rodgers, just for the fact that I think, Aaron, there's a cockiness to Aaron Rodgers. And now this is just my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Aaron Rodgers was washed 3 years ago. Okay. I said, okay, he's clearly in physical decline. He can't make all the throws anymore. This is the last year in Green Bay. He had some awful games that season. I mean, just terrible looking games. And then the people say, he's got all these young receivers and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, if you're great as a quarterback as you think you are, you're going to learn you're going to mentor these kids. You're going to show them how to get open. You're going to throw them open. You know what I mean? Things like that. I'm just not big on Aaron Rodgers now. I'm not, he's a Hall of Famer. You can't take that from him. But, I just wouldn't want that circus to come to town, especially if this is my last. If I think this is the last hurrah for my team to try to get back to where we were 2 seasons ago, I'm not going to jeopardize it by bringing in, a distraction like that.
No, I agree. I just thought it was kind of a long shot. Hey, let's get one last hoorah in there. But, man, Sam Darnold, I know they're mad that they let Sam Darnold even get out of their building because they made the decision to let Sam go ahead and go to Minnesota, obviously because Brock was playing as well as he played and he just went to a Super Bowl. But that pick, in my opinion, has come back to bite him. Sam Darnold,
it is.
You could have got him on a super friend. I mean, you could have got him around $10 to $15 million a year, 3 or 4 years right there. And, man, you setting your team up for amazing success if you do that. But obviously hindsight is 20/20, and they stuck with Brock Purdy. But a guy like Sam Darnold would be great for the Niners. The Niners got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback, and they got to figure out what are they doing with the rest of these guys, because you paid Brandon Ayuk $30-40 million a year, and then he went directly to IR. You gave Trent Williams a new deal, and he went directly to IR. You gave Christian McCaffrey money, he went straight to IR. So they got some stuff they got to figure out over there. Is the 49ers era done? I don't think so. I think they still got at least one bullet left in that chamber, but they got some tough decisions they have to make that they've kind of been pushing down the runway on making those decisions. Want to go over to the NFL draft. We are about 2 months away from the NFL draft. Want to talk about some of these guys on here, some picks that we think are the top guys at some positions, and then some sleepers. This is really more about the sleepers because I know Sed is a true fan of the game like myself, and we enjoy finding these guys that people we think are going to be slept on or that people are not talking about as much. So I want to go ahead and start it off with the quarterback position first. Quarterbacks, this is not a quarterback-heavy class whatsoever. We saw, 4 or 5 quarterbacks go in the first 15 picks last year. This is not going to be one of those drafts. Not at all.
Yeah, definitely not.
This is not going to be one of those drafts at the quarterback position, which is cool because I think there's so much more value you can get in this draft, and they often overinflate the importance of the quarterback when we keep seeing guys getting to the Super Bowl with a Brock Purdy, with the Jimmy Garoppolo type of quarterback anyway. So they overinflate that position, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the draft. They'll take a guy just because they think we have to have a guy, and it makes you pick somebody that ends up not being able to play. So quarterback position is obviously very important, but it's not a deep draft coming out. At the top pick, I'm not sure who the top pick is, Shador or Cam. It's apples and oranges. I think Cam is a little bit better than Shador right now, but I think Shador, in my opinion, has a higher ceiling than Cam because Cam, as great as he is, he's got the arm talent, he's mobile, he can move, but sometimes his decision-making can come back to bite him, and Miami saw that firsthand towards the end of that year as they got into some of those close games. Similar to, in my opinion, now this guy is definitely more talented than him, but Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams made a lot of those amazing plays in college, and a lot of those, I got away from this guy, and then I found a guy open 30, 40 yards down the field, and it looked really nice in college. And then he got to the NFL, and he got sacked 60-something times. So it's just there's an adjustment. Not saying that that's going to happen to Cam. That's just my opinion. But right now it's apples and oranges on your top guy. For my sleeper at the quarterback position, I've been saying it for about a month or so now, man. I really like Kyle McCord. I think that Ohio State should not have let him get out of Ohio State. I thought they could have won that championship they just won with Kyle McCord instead of having to pay Will Howard to come out there and come play. Now, it ended up working out for him, but it also ended up working out for Kyle McCord. He goes for $3,500 his first year in Syracuse. Then last year, he throws for almost 5,000 yards, just shy of 5,000 yards. On top of that, has Syracuse as a winning program. Syracuse is really never a winning program, probably since Donovan McNabb was at Syracuse.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they even talked about football at Syracuse. And he had this team very relevant, and they won some games. Matter of fact, the last game they won got Clemson into the college football playoffs pretty much. So this team, Kyle McCord, I think, is a really good sleeper. I know that people are going to be on Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart, and somebody's going to get tricked into taking Jalen Milroe. But Kyle McCord, I think, is an actual solid type of quarterback. And I'd be interested to see, do the 49ers take a chance maybe in the third or fourth round and pick up a Kyle McCord and say, hey, Brock, we'll let you play out this last year and kind of oversee Kyle McCord before we go ahead and get you out of here and let a young guy take over. Who are some QBs that you like in this draft this year coming out, Sid?
Yeah, and I was going to say Kyle McCord first. Broke Deshaun Watson's ACC passing record, right?
Yep.
Very, very productive. But another quarterback that I like is Dylan Gabriel.
Okay.
They got him there. He's a top 10 prospect at the position, but they got him at like 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Behind guys like Jackson Dart and Will Howard and
Will Howard is crazy.
I do not like Will Howard. I do not like Quinn Ewers. But the reason why I like Dylan Gabriel is he's played a lot of college football. He's played 6 seasons of college football, so he's a veteran. And 5 out of those 6 years, he threw for 3,000 yards or more and at least 29 touchdowns. So this is a productive guy.
Yeah. And
last year he had almost 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He takes care of the football. He makes good decisions as to where to go with the football. He's not the most mobile guy in the world, but he's a guy that's not going to put the ball in harm's way. I think somebody's going to find a nice little pickup in the 4th and 5th round when you call him Dylan Gabriel.
I agree. Dylan Gabriel was another guy that I was thinking about saying as well, because if you're a team that has a team and you just need a quarterback that can come in and manage your situation, similar to the 49ers, similar to the Minnesota Vikings, man, Dylan Gabriel is a guy that you can really have to consider taking because, like you said, he's played a lot of football. He's a decent decision maker with the football. He's not turning it over a lot. Is he undersized? Yeah. But I see him fitting right in that kind of Baker Mayfield role. Now, Baker Mayfield obviously has a way bigger arm than Gabriel, but they're around the same size. Gabriel has proven that he can play because he played in college for a long time. He's an older guy. He's played 6 years of college football. But that means he might be one of the most pro-ready, and I think that's where we're going to see a lot in this draft when we talk about quarterbacks. Shador's played a lot of football. Cam has played a lot of football. Kyle McCord has played a lot of football. Dylan Gabriel's played a lot of football. We're going to see some really experienced quarterbacks coming out this year. I didn't mention Riley Leonard. I know that's Rocky's guy. He calls him White Vic. I didn't mention Riley Leonard for a reason. He's played a lot of football too, but I'm not bringing him up in that conversation. I hope somebody gets tricked in it.
The thing about Riley Leonard, because Riley Leonard has great size.
He does.
And he's a great size and speed combination. He really is. He just doesn't – there's something about Riley Leonard that's kind of subdued in his play. He just doesn't kind of pop, when you watch him play. He's just not a lot of – I don't want to say substance. There's more substance than style to his game. Let's put it like that. But sure. He is productive. He's not highly productive. But, he'll somebody's going to draft him. Somebody's going to take him. And they should. And but he kind of has a Chase Daniel feel to me. A guy that's going to get into the league and going to bounce around for 10, 11 years, before he goes into broadcasting.
Yeah, no, he said before he goes to broadcasting. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. So quarterbacks, a lot of older guys coming out, so guys will get some productive action in that third, fourth, maybe even fifth round. At the top of it, it's scary because Shador and Cam, yeah, that's cool. But at the top, you got to pick off upside. So Quinn Ewers is going to be in there. Jalen Milroe is going to be in there. Jackson Dart. That's when it starts to get scary for me at the quarterback position.
And I think of that group, that second tier that we're talking about, I think the one that's going to go first is going to be Jalen Milroe.
Wow.
I wouldn't take it, but because of we've seen what Jaden Daniels did this year, because of we've seen some of the plays that Anthony Richardson was able to make in his rookie year. Somebody's going to fall in love with Jalen Milroe's athleticism. They said he was the fastest player on Alabama's team. That's saying something.
Yeah.
So blazing speed. He's going to have to get better at actually playing from the pocket. He's not a guy that you can plug in and play. He's definitely not that. Like I said, there's only 2 guys in the draft that you can do that with. But somebody's going to fall in love with Jalen Milroe, and it wouldn't be surprised if you see him go somewhere around the end of that second round somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. And not saying that Jalen Milroe can't get good, but they got to give this guy time if you draft him. The worst thing they can do is draft him, and at the end of his first year, you start playing him. Give this guy a couple of years, similar to how we saw a Jordan Love. Jordan Love sat for 3 or 4 years before he finally got an opportunity. And I think I think that helped him, because I think if they would have threw him in and got rid of Aaron Rodgers in that first year and let him play his second year, he wasn't going to be the guy that he is now, and he wasn't going to have this big contract that he has now. So get Jalen Milroe in the second or third round and sit him. Let him actually figure out how NFL football works, because you can't teach all those other things that he has. You can't teach the size and the speed that this guy has coming out of Bama. So he's definitely a project quarterback. And somebody, if they do get him, please just sit him. Don't throw him right in the fire like they did Anthony Richardson, and then you figure out Anthony Richardson can't throw a 5-yard out on time without it getting picked off. So let's get this guy some time, man. Looking at the running back position, and I'll let you go first with this one. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty is the top dog in this draft as far as the running back position. But who are some of these other guys in the draft that you like coming out the running back? Because like I've said multiple times, probably the deepest running back draft that I've seen since I've been really paying attention to the draft like that.
Of all the running backs who are, kind of flying under the radar, the one I like the most is Damian Martinez.
Miami.
Miami. He's a big back. He's like 6 feet, 232. Ran for 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns last year. Ran for 1,000 yards, year before. I think he transferred from Oregon State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so.
But Damian Martinez is the type of guy. He reminds me a lot of Najee Harris.
Okay.
Just the running style and the body type, and he's. I think he may be barely a top 10 prospect at that position, but somebody whoever's going to end up picking this guy, and he's probably going to be a day 3 guy. He's probably going to be a day 3 guy. Probably in the 5th somewhere, 6, depending on what's going on. But I think this is going to be a guy who's going to be able to come in and serve as I think he's going to be able to play right away, depending upon which system he plays in. But he's definitely a guy that you can use as a handcuff to whoever your starter is. I think this guy's going to be really productive, in the NFL. I really do.
I agree. I 100% agree, man. I love Damian Martinez. That's why I love this running back class so much, because like you said, this guy is one of the 9th, 10th, 12th prospects coming out in this year's draft. Yeah. And Damian Martinez in a lot of drafts is your running back 3 or your running back 4 coming out. Like I said, Genty is the top dog in this draft, deservingly so. He rushed for 2,600 yards. But what I want people to realize is that the gap is not as big between him and 2 guys. Omarion Hampton and Caleb Johnson are going to be really good running backs coming out in this draft. So people need to pay attention to those. But I want to go to some of my sleepers. My first sleeper off the board is a guy that was going to be running back 2 or 3 coming out this year, and that's Ollie Gordon. I think Ollie Gordon is still going to be a really good back. I think Ollie Gordon has got the size. He's able to come in and play right away because of his size. This is a day 1 running back 1, in my opinion. If you run that West Coast style offense and you need a bruiser at running back, man, Ollie Gordon can be that right away. 6'2", 225 pounds coming out of Oklahoma State. He fell off kind of on draft boards because Oklahoma State was terrible. So he couldn't do anything. Yeah. The passing game was terrible. The defense was terrible. So he didn't get to shine as much as what people thought he was going to do. So I really like Ollie Gordon coming out. And another sleeper pick I like is another guy out of the Big 12, and that's Devin Neal. I think Devin Neal is going to be a really good back coming into this class because this is a guy that has proven he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball. He can be a first down. He can be a first or second down running back as well. You couple that with his catching ability, with his size. He's 5'11", 215. This is a sturdy running back coming out. And I think Devin Neal is really going to be one of those sleepers. And we're talking about day 3 guys at this point. We're talking about guys that might be going in the 4th or 5th round and that are really good coming out. I could talk about this running back class all day because there's really good guys. I think Taj Brooks is a guy that a lot of people forgot about. He was a preseason All-American at Texas Tech. Texas Tech didn't do as good as what people thought, so they forgot about him. We haven't even talked about the 2 running backs from Ohio State. So, man, I love this draft of running back. Like I said, I could talk about this running back class all day. But those are my sleepers, man.
And
Go ahead.
You didn't even mention names like the Donovan Edwards, Cam Scatterbo, Jordan James. I mean, this is a ton of backs in this draft. It really is.
This is like I said, this is the most running back heavy draft that I can remember and watching, man, because there's guys that you're gonna get a lot of value from at the end. Donovan Edwards is another great one that you mentioned. He's at the back part of where they're ranking the running backs right now. Raheem Sanders had a great year at South Carolina, and he really carried that South Carolina offense, and that South Carolina team ended up being one of the better teams in the nation, and it's going to be a really good team next year as well. But he carried a lot of that load for them.
Trevor Etienne,
Yeah. Now Etienne is one that I've been kind of back and forth on, man, because I didn't like the way he played at Georgia. That does not mean he's not going to be a good back in the NFL. He definitely had some really good seasons at Florida before he transferred to Georgia. And I like R.J. Harvey, too, coming out of UCF. He's a sleeper. He's a little back. He's 5'9", but that guy can play. Before UCF kind of fell off towards the end of the season, he was playing really great. Before we go on to break, want to talk about a couple of receivers. Now, Travis Hunter has come back, and now he's listed with the receivers and the DBs coming out. We talked about him before on here, going out and declaring as a DB, but now he's listed as both. But since he's listed as both, I'm going to leave him out of this. My top dog in this draft coming out the receiver is McMillan out of Arizona, man. This dude is a day 1 pick. Obviously, he's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. 6'5", 210 pounds. He's got the speed. He's got the hands. He's going to be a great player in the NFL right away. He's a guy that's plug and play as soon as you get him into the NFL. I think receiver has the receiver class coming out is a pretty good one as well this year. My sleeper pick that I really like is I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but A.O. Maynor from Stanford. Man, this dude can play. My first time seeing him play was when Colorado played Stanford at like 10 o'clock at night last year, and he absolutely torched Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter had been having a great year at DB. He couldn't do anything with this dude. He was faster than him. He was bigger than him. He was jumping over him. He was head tapping in the end zone. He was killing him on slants. That was my first time seeing him. Stanford, another team that just really wasn't good this year. So this guy fell off a lot of people's radars. But I think people are going to get a really, really good player because he's got the speed and he's got the size to go with it at the receiver position. Who are some receivers you like coming out this year?
One that I really like and nobody's really talking about coming out of the Big 12. I like Savion Williams at TCU.
Yeah.
He's got a big body, 6'5", 225. He doesn't have blazing speed, but he did have a 75-yard touchdown catch last season. 6 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Not the most productive. Like he wasn't a wide receiver one kind of guy, but he's the kind of guy that, like we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the kind of guy that you can draft in Cincinnati. He's big, so you can play him on the outside, chase to the slot, and have him create all kinds of havoc there. I think somebody's going to get a guy. And like I said, we know that the easiest, well, not the easiest, but the quickest transition from college to pro seems to be at the wide receiver position. So this is a guy who I think can definitely become a rookie starter, depending on what system he goes to.
Yeah, I really do like Savion Williams. Only reason I didn't say it because I'm so reluctant to take TCU receivers because their track record over the last 10 years.
They've been so disappointing, haven't they?
Josh Doxson, he was coming out with a lot of promise. That didn't work out. Jalen Rieger, he came out with a lot of promise. That didn't work out. So I'm just so scared to take those guys. And then the latest one in the San Diego Chargers or the Los Angeles Chargers.
Quentin.
Quentin Johnson. That's just like, I don't know about these guys, but I do like Savion. I think he's the guy that can break that mold, man. I really, really like Savion Williams since I'm a Big 12 guy. I got to watch him a lot this year. Man, I like to and then one more big receiver out the Big 12 that the Cincinnati Bengals should be looking at, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. Jaden Higgins, 6'4", 210, man. This dude can play. I watched him give Baylor all type of problems at the beginning of the year. Jaden Higgins is a really, really good receiver. I like him coming out too. A lot of good big receivers coming out this year. Like you said, Savion Williams, a big receiver. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, a really big receiver. McMillan, obviously, at the top of the draft, big receiver as well. So I like the receiver class coming out this year. Which way Travis Hunter decides to go, that's left up to whoever decides to draft him. Like I said before, I think DB is obviously his calling card, but he's definitely going to get some plays on offense as well. Before we go on the break, the Cowboys got the number 12 pick, and I was kind of going back and forth with somebody about this. Or should they take a receiver here? They need a receiver. Should they take a running back and go ahead and get Genty? Or should they get a corner and get a guy like Will Johnson that I think is a really good player coming out of Michigan at the corner spot? What do you think is the most important piece for them to get with that number 12 pick that the Cowboys have in the draft?
Well, of course, it would be a splash to get Genty, and who might very well still be there at 12. But we just talk about how deep this running back class is, so there's no need for you to spend that kind of draft capital in that position. I would probably want to go with Will Johnson, me personally. You got to get that secondary, the other side of that secondary locked down, because the way that this Cowboy offense, the way it's currently constructed, the way that it's projecting to me, your defense is going to be on the field for quite some time. And so, I think you be better served getting the best defender that you can to show up that side of the ball before you worry about something like running back.
Yeah, I said the same thing, man. People keep telling me, man, they got to get Genty at 12. They got to get Genty at 12. I'm like, y'all can't be looking at this running back class that's coming out. You can get a day one starter in the 4th or 5th round of this running back class. There's 20 good running backs coming out this year. That's one. Two, I think getting a guy like Will Johnson can not only solidify your defense, but you can move off of the Trayvon Diggs contract. Diggs got hurt at the end of the season. Diggs has shown, and I've said this even when he was a first-team All-Pro, if he's not intercepting the ball, he's giving no value to the defense. Might be the worst tackler in the league. And in man-to-man, one-on-one coverages, he's not the best. He's not terrible, but he's not the best. But he's getting paid like some of the best because of the picks he's able to get. But when he's not getting picks, this guy is not that productive on the field. If you can move off of Diggs, because you got to move off somebody. You're about to have to pay Micah Parsons. Dak is already going to be one of the highest-paid players in the league, and you just made CeeDee Lamb the highest-paid receiver in the league. You got to move off somebody.
I just thought to ask you, do you have to pay Micah Parsons? Because if you don't, because there's a lot of good edge rushers, especially at the top of the draft, and the way that he's kind of a disruptor, off the field, with his comments and you gotta think maybe it's just the beginning of some type of a locker room cancer beginning to fester with him, but he always seems to be unhappy. He always seems to be unhappy.
No,
and so
I've
do you
seen
want
that a
to
lot.
throw a bunch of money at the guy? Now, listen, generational talent, I get it.
For sure.
But you can't afford. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Because if you do pay him, then you're going to be hurting at the other 2 or 3 other positions where you have glaring needs.
That is 100% true, man.
Because
I've gone back and forth
they
on
that offensive line as well.
Yeah. I'm about to talk about that in just a second because Zach Martin just chunked the deuces up on the Cowboys. Said, I'm not going to sit around for this for 3-4 more 8-8 seasons. Y'all made him do 3 8-8 seasons already when he had Jason Garrett. He's not about to sit around for that anymore. So he's chunked the deuces up and retired just today. But yeah, man, I've been back and forth on that on the Micah Parsons thing. At this point, I think you keep him because he's young and he can be a cornerstone. There's just got to be some stipulations. Like, bro, can you just at least do the podcast in the offseason? Can you just wait till the offseason to do the podcast? I just seen Lawrence Taylor come out, I think, yesterday and said, love Micah Parsons as a player, but he's got to do more football and less podcast. Now, that's coming from the greatest to ever play your position. You should probably listen when Lawrence Taylor has something to say. But, you can get what set up that first dynasty run for the Cowboys? Trading Herschel Walker. Maybe Micah Parsons is that Herschel Walker in this scenario, but I don't know. We're going to have plenty of time to go back and forth on that the whole offseason, but that's a real discussion. A lot of people say it's not a discussion. That's a real discussion on should you or should you not move off of Micah Parsons. Folks, we got to get into a quick break, touch the top of the hour. When we come back, still got to do some more NFL draft talk. We got some quick takes to talk about, and we got to talk about some NBAs. The NBA is back tonight. Most of the teams back in action tonight, back off of All-Star break. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have plenty to talk about. Stay tuned and stay locked in right here on Centex Primetime. We'll be right back.
Lighthouse Streaming, a full-scale media agency and your go-to source for all things audio and video. Is your church long overdue for audio and video upgrades? Call Lighthouse Streaming for a free consultation. Does your corporate or church event need audio or video production? Don't stress. Call the guys at Lighthouse Streaming. In business since 2017, Lighthouse Streaming has produced hundreds of live events and completed dozens of church and venue installations. Whatever your AV needs are, Lighthouse Streaming has you covered. Give them a call at 254-252-4206. That's 254-252-4206. Or go to lighthousestreaming.com and set up your free consultation.
Hey guys, it's Rocky and Keisha, and at Prosperity Tax Service, we're all about convenience. We get it. Life is busy. Your time is valuable. That's why we've streamlined the entire process to be as hassle-free as possible.
No more sifting through piles of paperwork or spending hours at an office. With Prosperity Tax Service, you can handle your taxes from the comfort of your own home.
Your financial data is in safe hands with us through our secure and user-friendly customer portal at prosperitytax.com. It's your one-stop shop for all things tax-related. Log in anytime, from anywhere, whether it's from your couch or on the go.
We are experienced tax professionals, well-versed in handling a variety of tax situations. Receive genuine assistance and competitive pricing from real tax professionals who've seen it all.
We're marking 2 decades as a community-based enterprise here in Waco, Texas. So call us at 254-235-5662 or log on to www.prosperitytax.com. Thanks, guys.
NSJ Event Co., one of the premier event designers in Central Texas and a Centex Sports Network supporter. Voted Waco Awards Event Planner of the Year 2021, NSJ Event Co. is your go-to source for event planning. Whether it's your next baby shower, birthday bash, wedding, or retirement party, NSJ Event Co. will bring out the elegance, class, and style your event deserves. Call NSJ Event Co. at the number on the screen or scan the QR code to schedule a free consultation. NSJ Event Co., where the party lady takes care of all your event needs.
Hello?
Hey, what are you doing?
Oh, nothing, girl. Trying to decide where I'm going to find a birthday gift for my boyfriend.
Oh, that's easy. Go over to the hat stand at 900 East Waco Drive.
What do they carry?
They carry men's urban wear, jerseys, hats. They even do custom embroidery. You could get his name on a hat.
What? Really?
Yeah, you can even get a custom birthday shirt made as well.
I'm on my way. Where did you say it was again?
900 East Waco Drive. Right there next to the Goodwill.
Okay.
Lighthouse Streaming, a full-scale media agency and your go-to source for all things audio and video. Is your church long overdue for audio and video upgrades? Call Lighthouse Streaming for a free consultation. Does your corporate or church event need audio or video production? Don't stress. Call the guys at Lighthouse Streaming. In business since 2017, Lighthouse Streaming has produced hundreds of live events and completed dozens of church and venue installations. Whatever your AV needs are, Lighthouse Streaming has you covered. Give them a call at 254-252-4206. That's 254-252-4206. Or go to lighthousestreaming.com and set up your free consultation.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Centex Primetime, hour number 2 here of the show today on this Thursday/Friday Eve. Hope everybody's doing great out there today. Want to thank you guys for tuning in with us today on Centex Sports Network / Centex Sports TV over on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're just outside of 2,000 subscribers right now. Go on there and hit that subscribe button. Like and share this stream as well as we're here wrapping up. Just got done talking about some NFL draft and still got plenty more to talk about here on the show. Want to thank you guys for tuning in with us on Facebook as well. Over on Facebook, Centex Sports Network, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Centex Sports Network. Also, make sure you guys go on the website. Check out CentexSportsNetwork.com, man. We got a lot of stuff on there, a lot of teams that we cover, especially McLennan Community College as their basketball team. Both came out with victories yesterday over Ranger College. Women's team ranked number 9 in the nation. The men's team on their way to being ranked. They've already received votes. They're on their way to being ranked as they go in and battle Grayson this coming up weekend. Going to be a huge game for the women's team, as that is going to be the game pretty much for the conference title. So make sure you guys are tuning in for that. You can catch all that action on CentexSportsNetwork.com. You can catch that action right here on YouTube, Centex Sports Network / Centex Sports TV. You can go right over there, hit that subscribe button, and get ready for all of that as well. Hope everybody's staying warm out there, man. It's freezing. It's cold. Got up this morning to leave around 7 o'clock. They said it feels like 3 degrees outside. I don't know what 3 degrees feels like. I'm from Texas. I don't know what that feels like or what it's supposed to feel like. They said it feels like 3 outside. That doesn't help me. It's just cold. Anything below 32 is just cold. So make sure y'all staying warm out there, man. You know somebody that needs a coat or something, help them out. Help your people in need that need a little coat or something right now, because it's too cold to be out there. But like I always say, I ain't no weatherman, so I ain't going to try to be and try to predict the weather. Still joined on the show here by Seth Eigerhart, as we just got done talking about some NFL draft. Want to bring up the defensive side of the NFL draft before we move on and do some quick takes. We just talked about our top receivers that we like coming out, the sleeper picks. That's what we're picking mostly, is the sleeper picks. Like we said, super deep running back class, super deep wide receiver class as well. Want to go to the defensive side of the ball. Now, everybody should know those top dogs coming out this year, and mainly the top dog, in my opinion, and that's Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is an absolute monster, man. He helped lead this Penn State team to the fourth round, or to the Final Four in the college football playoffs, the first year of the 12-team playoff. Everybody should know about him by now, because he's an absolute monster. Abdul Carter can easily be the first player taken in this draft. I think he is going to be, I don't want to say generational talent, because Mel Kiper's already thrown that word around too much, and he'll say generational talent like around people like Graham Harrell or something. So not going to say generational talent, but Abdul Carter has shown to be the best, maybe the best player in this draft, man. I mean, it's tough to say. However you want to go with it, Travis Hunter, you want to say a Genty, you want to say all these different guys. Abdul Carter's right there at the top of the draft list. But I want to talk about some of the sleeper guys that I like coming out in this year's draft. One of them being another edge rusher, and that is Mike Green coming out of Marshall. Mike Green, I think, is going to be a really good player in this year's draft coming out. He played a phenomenal season for Marshall this year. But what really took him over the top, I already liked him when he was playing at Marshall, took him over the top for me is came to the Senior Bowl and just dominated. He dominated in the Senior Bowl, and I think he's going to come to the draft and dominate too. This is a guy that's a really good athlete, 6'4", 248 pounds, coming out this year as an edge rusher. He's got speed, he's got the size, he's got jumping ability. I think once he comes in and has a really good combine, we're going to see this guy start moving up on draft boards. Right now, they got him around 7 or 8, somewhere in that range. But I think he's going to really start moving up the draft boards as far as edge rushers coming out. And this is a really, really good draft for edge rushers. Looking for an edge rusher, you're going to be able to find one in this year's draft. Guys like Mikael Williams coming out, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, a lot of dudes coming out. Another guy that I like is also another pass rusher as well. He's kind of slept on, but he's not really slept on, and that is James Pierce. I think James Pierce is a guy that had the potential to be the top edge rusher taken out of the draft this year. But the way that Abdul Carter played this year, obviously he jumped in front of him. Mikael Williams, when he was healthy, was completely dominant for Georgia. But I really, really liked the season that James Pierce had. He was a huge reason that Tennessee defense was playing amazing for a majority of the season. And he was a huge part of that coming out of the draft. So there's a lot of guys that I like. We talked about Will Johnson earlier, but he's not really a sleeper. I think he's a guy that can come in and be a day one guy for a lot of teams at the cornerback position. Said, who are some guys that you like on the defensive side of the ball coming out in this year's draft?
Yeah, one of the edge rushers that I like, that I think somebody's going to get a pretty good steal on day 3 or is I'm gonna jack his name up, but it's Princely Umanmielen out of Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He's long. He's like 6'5", 255. He's quick. He's active. Had 10.5 sacks this year. He was one of the reasons why that Ole Miss defense was so good this year. Yep. Him and those 2 big space heaters up in the middle. That was probably the best defense in the SEC, in my opinion. They just they got inconsistent play from their quarterback. It kind of kept them in holes and stuff. But I really like this guy. I think this guy has a chance to be to have a really good successful career in the NFL.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like him a lot, man. Like you said, Ole Miss, they had a lot of guys because Jared Ivey's coming out in this year's draft. He was good. And Walter Nolan is a guy that's got the potential to be another one of those guys you can say might be the best defensive player in this draft. And he's coming in from the D tackle position. So I like what Ole Miss had, and I definitely liked him as well. There's a lot of depth coming in on the defensive line this year. At edge rusher, like I just said, interior line, obviously everybody knows about Mason Graham. He might be a top 5 pick, but Walter Nolan's a really good guy as well. And then I like Alfred Collins out of Texas. Man, a lot of guys not talking about him.
Alfred Collins, another great defensive tackle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Alfred Collins is a guy that was a huge part of the reason why Texas's defense was one of the top defenses in the nation this last year. So I really like him a lot coming out. I think he's one of those sleeper guys that you can get. And then another name that I'm going to mess up, JT Tumaloa out of Ohio State. This is a guy that played good for them all year long on the opposite side of Jack Sawyer. But when they got into the playoffs, he dominated. He dominated each game they played in the playoffs from Tennessee all the way to the national championship game against Notre Dame. So, man, it's a lot of good depth coming out in this year's draft. I already talked about Will Johnson, but obviously I think the Jim Thorpe winner should be getting more love than what he's getting because they got him back kind of far. And Jahdae Barron, I definitely think he should be the second guy taken off at the cornerback spot in this year's draft. But there's some other guys they have in front of him. Denzel Burke really fell back in this year's draft because of the way he was getting torched by Oregon when they tried to keep playing the man-to-man against Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart when Ohio State played Oregon. But he's still a really good guy that's coming out this year. And then Kobe Bryant out of Kansas is going to be a really solid pro, I believe, as well. So, folks, like I said, the NFL draft is right around the corner. It seems like April's a far way away, but we're going to blink and it's going to be April because I still feel like it's the first week of January and it's going to be March. So
and just one more guy I want to add on.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Corners out of the Big 12. Darian Porter out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
He's one of those big corners. He's 6'4", 195 guy. And you're going to need him because we talk about how many big receivers are going to be coming out into the draft that are already in the league. So you're going to need a big corner like him to be able to battle those guys out there one-on-one.
No, I agree. He played really well for them, and that Iowa State defense was a sleeper all year long.
Mm-hmm.
They really played well, especially while they were on their run of being undefeated. The Iowa State defense really won them a lot of those games, and he was a big part of that Iowa State defense. So I like that guy as well. Like I said, a lot of depth coming out of certain positions this year. Quarterback not being one of them, and offense and on the offensive line, I kind of left them out because there's some guys we know at the top, but man, we got a lot of question marks coming out in this year's draft at the offensive line, and we'll talk more and get more in depth with the offensive line. But I think there's really 4 really good tackles coming out. Obviously, I think Will Campbell is the best one, but I like the dude from Iowa State too, and then Kelvin Banks from Texas as well. But after you get to about 4 or 5, some question marks in there, and we'll be able to break down the offensive line in more depth as we get closer and closer to the draft. Like I said, draft right around the corner, coming up in April. Want to get to some quick takes before we start talking some NBA. Like I said, the NBA is back in action tonight, as most of the teams will be back playing tonight as they come back from the All-Star game. One news moment I want to talk about, and we talked about a little bit in hour number 1, Zach Martin is retiring from the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I see this more as not only is Zach Martin put in his time, man, and he's been one of the best. You can't ask for more production out of that guy. He was an all-pro most years he was in the league. You can't ask for more than that. I think he got tired of this. He sees what I see, a rebuild, whether it's a forced rebuild or a rebuild that's going to happen that's just inevitable by the Dallas Cowboys. And Zach Martin doesn't want to be part of a rebuild, and he doesn't want to ask for a trade and have to go to another team. So instead of doing that, hey, man, I'll just hang my hard hat up on the wall, and I'll go ahead and call it a day. And that's exactly what Zach Martin is doing. Seb, what do you think about Zach Martin retiring from the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's thinking exactly what you're thinking. This is not going to get better anytime soon. And I don't know if I want to keep working as hard as I do in the offseason to make sure that I'm ready for the regular season to go 8-8 again. So, because people say, well, these guys make a lot of money and this and that. And that's true. But just think about the mental fatigue. Not just, and we already know how hard it is physically. Just think how hard it must be mentally to know that every year you come out here, you play at an all-pro level, and despite your best efforts, this is what you got to show for it as a team. You would get tired of that. You would get tired of that, especially when it seems like that there's no sense of urgency from the front office to do anything about making a team any better from a roster standpoint. So. He's earned his keep. Kudos to him. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion.
For sure.
He deserves better. So I'm glad to hear Zach Martin is found a way to escape out of the loony bin.
Yeah, man. Because nobody wants to. You talked about it. The mental fatigue. This dude has been the best you can be at his position for a decade. And what has it gotten him? It's gotten him nothing but short-lived playoff success, short-lived regular season success, and then you have to hear your owner on interviews. Then you got to hear your defensive lineman talk about the culture, and he just got there, and you've been putting in work for 10 years. You got to hear about your quarterback coming out and saying, we're going to win it next year. Looking at the Cowboys now, and I might not want to say it, that's a huge piece. And Zach Martin did not play. Last year was his worst year he's had of his career. He did not play at an all-pro level last year. But that is a huge piece you're going to have to replace. Yes, Tyler Smith is a really good guard playing on the left guard side. But you already tried to replace a guy that's probably going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, and you try to replace him with Tyler Guyton. That didn't work out so well. Now you're going to have to try to replace Zach Martin. You still haven't shored up your right tackle position. Only position you have shored up is left guard. So now when you're coming in, you're not just looking at the running back deficit. You're not just looking at the lack of talent at the wide receiver spot. Now you're looking at what are we going to do on this offensive line to protect Dak? Because at this point, since you didn't want to rebuild, you have to give Dak everything that you can. You have to give him receivers.
This is the point I was trying to make. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time to go ahead and move off Micah. You can get Pirates ransom from Micah You got so many holes on that offensive line. You have some question marks on the defensive side as well. Maybe instead of putting all these resources into this one player who is not even let's just say he's a little chatty, a little too chatty at times. So maybe you instead of putting that in one player, maybe you turn that into draft capital, free up some free agency money, bring in a couple of veterans. If they're no more than bridge players, if anything else, but at least there'll be veteran players on the line, and and then that'll help start the improvement because like you say, you've already paid Dak, so he's your number one asset. You've already paid CD. He's not going anywhere. So, you can't. It's just like the Cincinnati. You can't pay everybody. You can't pay everybody. So at some point in time, you have to start pivoting off of some of these guys, identifying who do we really want, and they've already done that by handing out the contracts to Dak and CD, so that they prioritize them over Micah. So since he's the kind of odd man out, go ahead and move off of him.
And you're almost in a situation. Well, I'm not going to say you have to, because I honestly don't think they're going to, because Jerry Jones loves his guys that he drafts. But you're almost in a situation where you have to, because you paid Dak. Like I said before, they paid him. The worst decision they're going to make, right when we were starting this show here, those are some of the first topics that we were talking about. Should they pay Dak? Because at that point they hadn't yet. And as many times as I could get to say it, I said no. What are you going to pay him for? What is he going to do once you pay him? Is Dak a good quarterback that can win you games? Absolutely. But there are games that they have lost in the playoffs because of Dak. And you give him $60 million knowing the guys that you have coming up. You have to pay CD. He's playing like one of the best receivers in the league. You have to pay Micah. He's playing like one of the best defensive players in the league. He's made the All-Pro team 3 times in 4 years. You paid Trayvon Diggs, another mistake I thought you made. You should have moved off to Marcus Lawrence sooner. You still have him under contract. No idea how they haven't moved off of him yet. They've got decisions they got to make, and now you're so cap-strapped, even with the cap going up. Who do you add? You have to build through the draft. But there's not enough draft picks for the amount of holes you have, because you need interior line play. You need offensive line play. You need linebackers. You're decent at DB, I guess, because you paid guys already, and you're going to have to make a decision on DeRon Bland now. You need receivers. You need running backs. I mean, it's a lot of things, and you only got 7 picks, man. So this is going to be a very, very interesting offseason for the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, they'll have to go into it without Zach Martin, as he has chunked the deuces up, and he's headed to the retirement home to get out of the loony box, as you said, and I might have to agree with that one. Looking at some more football, Texas Longhorns, the USC Trojans, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers have all canceled their spring games coming up. Have all canceled their spring games coming up in a couple of months. Now, Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian has said, hey, man, they played a lot of games over the last couple of years. They've played 30 games. They've had 25 players invited to the NFL Combine. And he said the wear and tear and the turnover with 21 mid-year recruits arriving, it might be time to think a little bit differently about the spring game. So they've opted out of the spring game. I didn't even know this is a thing that was being done, like that you could opt out of the spring game. I thought if you're playing a lot of guys, you got 90 guys on the roster, close to 100 guys on the roster, play those other guys that aren't going to get to play. Just play the young dudes, the freshmen coming in. Let them go out there and get some burn. They just got on the campus. They haven't been able to get out there and show any real live action. Let those guys play. But he said he don't want to risk anything with the other guys or with his main guys or with whoever. So he's deciding to sit this one out. USC Trojans have followed, and Nebraska, I think, was the first one to say that they canceled their spring game. What do you think about these schools canceling their spring game?
Yeah, I don't like it, especially for the reason that Sark had given. We played a bunch of games. Isn't the point to play a bunch of games? Because that means you're doing a bunch of winning. You're going deep into the postseason. So I don't like that. To me, the spring game is one of two things. Number one, like you said, is there's so many guys coming on their roster at that time. It's a good evaluation tool. It's a way for you to see guys in a game type setting to kind of help you kind of cull your roster. Okay, the difference between third third string and fourth string and fifth string, right?
Yep.
So it's a good way to help you call your roster. And number two, it's for your fan base. It's for the students.
Exactly.
That was always a big deal. I remember when I was at UT, the spring game was a big deal just for us to go watch. You know, so I don't like that. It kind of shows. It's just another example of how the college football model is moving away from traditionalism and is going into this professionalism.
Yeah, no, that is a great way to put it, because now we're starting to see load management in college football. We're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Why do they need any type of load management? They played a lot of games. Bro, they're 20. That's when you can play a lot of games, is when you're only 20, 21 years old. They're going to be rejuvenated. Man, they're going to be at a party that night. You talking about them being tired. They can be tired. They can play 2 games in 1 week, and they're going to be at somebody's party that night. So what are you talking about, man? These guys are young. This is when you let them go out there and play. And what about those freshmen that aren't going to see any time? What about some of those sophomores that's been waiting since last year to get some burn? That's how you end up with dudes in the transfer portal. Now you don't even get a chance to let your fan base, like you said, the spring game is about the fans. Are they going to come out and play some great football? There's not even that much to evaluate. You got ones playing against twos most of the time. You got twos playing against threes. You got threes playing against fours. You can evaluate some things, but most of the time, you just let guys go out there and get some burn. Everybody's waiting. If you're a freshman that didn't play last year, you haven't played football in 365 days. You just want to get a chance to get out there and play football again. So I'm with you, man. I don't like the fact that they're taking it away. But you made a really great point. This is the NCAA moving away from being the amateur league to being a pro league. And we're starting to see it in every type of way, and now including load management for a 19-year-old, which is crazy. But they decided
– that's ridiculous, yeah.
They decided along with USC and Nebraska, I think they were the first one to do it, that they would not be playing the spring game. So we'll see what type of backlash they get, because, like you said, you were at Texas. You know how much that spring game means. It's going to be close to 100,000 people out there, as if they were playing Alabama or something just for the spring game. So we'll see what type of backlash comes from that. Tonight at 7 o'clock, a sport that I've never talked about on the show, and if you're looking for me to talk about on the show, you're probably not going to hear it. But there's a hockey game tonight. Canada versus USA. The 4 nations face off. Now, the only reason I'm even talking about this, because I'm not even going to pretend like I watch hockey. I don't watch hockey. Will I get into hockey more? We'll see. I know some people say it's a great sport and all this stuff, but I'm just confused a lot of the time. They don't need to watch it with some real hockey fans. They can explain everything to me. But Canada versus USA tonight, I'm going to be tuning in, because when they played last week, they got it popping immediately. Canada came out there and booed USA during the national anthem. Their fans were booing. USA players did what they're supposed to do if people are booing your national anthem. They came out there and started 3 fights in 30 seconds. I don't want to watch anything else in hockey. I'm just here for the fights. So let's see if they're going to get some more fights tonight. Obviously, Canada and USA is a huge rival, because a lot of the best players in the NHL come from Canada. And America's got pride. We feel like we should be the best at anything that we do. So we want to be the best. I know Canada's probably a little bit better. I think they tied the last time our Team USA won the first matchup 3-1. Is Canada going to come back and get some revenge this game, or are they just going to start boxing again? I don't know, but I'll be tuned in at least for a little bit. What you think about this game tonight, Canada versus USA, in the 4 nations face-off?
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm not a hockey guy. I can't explain anything about it. But here's what is interesting. Okay, this is an exhibition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like the All-Star game, NBA All-Star game was an exhibition. Okay, if you want to know how to generate more interest in the All-Star game, you go to a USA versus the world format, because you see how hard these Americans are playing. In this exhibition, this doesn't mean anything, okay? But when you put an element of nationalism in it, players start they take it seriously. On Netflix, there's a documentary on Netflix. It was executively produced by Barack and Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Court of Gold, and it's a behind-the-scenes look at the 2024 men's Olympic basketball tournament.
Yeah.
And these guys play so hard, just representing their country, right? So when you put just think about it. A USA versus the world format. What would it look like? Well, look at the starting roster for the world, right? Jokic, Gianna, Luka, SGA, Wemby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just off the top of my head. That's, on and on and on and on. There's so many NBA players that come from other places. The last 5 MVPs, foreign born.
Yep.
The top 3 top scorers in the league right now, foreign born. Last 2 overall number 1 picks in the draft, foreign born. Yep. So if you give these guys a kind of a sense of nationalism, a sense of national pride to play for, maybe that patriot and will come out a little bit more, and they won't be so disinterested when they're playing in this All-Star game.
Man, that's one of the best ideas you've had since you came on to this show, Said, because I've been saying this for a couple of years. The only problem only reason I feel like they haven't done it is because we're going to start seeing American guys get snubbed, so a mid-level foreign-born player can get in just to make the teams even. But if it wasn't for that, that is exactly what they should do. They flirted around with it in the rookie games. They did the World versus USA in the rookie-sophomore game. They did that for a few years before they went back to just doing rookies and sophomores. But, man, that would be good because everybody wants to know. And people are going to play because there ain't no more pride than you got than that country being on your chest. As you just talked about that documentary, man, people are going to go out there and play hard because I know they're going to play hard because the Europeans are going to play hard. Giannis is going to come out there and play hard. Luka's going to come out there and play hard, or whatever his version of hard is, if they come out there and say this is USA versus the world in the All-Star game. You'll 1,000% get some competitive nature going if you say that. Before we move on to the NBA, you just talked about it, man, the All-Star game. I didn't get a chance to ask you yet here on the show. What was your thoughts on this All-Star game format and the All-Star weekend in general?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Listen, I don't know what was so broken about the old model. East versus West. I don't know what was broken about that. Then you had to go to this fantasy draft type deal. Where we're picking our guys, and listen, if you want people to watch the game, the players have to play harder. It's just that simple. All these gimmicks and reformatting that you're doing, I don't care about that. And to me, that was a really poor showing by the NBA. It's just too much silly stuff. Not enough basketball. I just didn't like it at all. Of course, I'm from a generation where we see, we saw Jordan and Magic and Kobe and these guys come in and they play hard and they care. Now, it's not playoff intensity basketball, but it's not street ball.
Yeah.
Guys want to win. I'm not going to let. Shannon Sharp said it best. He was talking about this generation's versions of All-Stars versus his generation of versions. Of course, he was an NFL player, but he said even at All-Star at the All-Star game, the All-Pro game, he said, we weren't playing like it was the playoffs, but at the same time, we playing with pride. I'm not just going to get out here and let you just dust me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though this is an exhibition, but yeah, I'm not. No, I'm gonna play as hard as I need to play to make sure that you still can't beat me. And this is what we're not seeing, in the NBA. And people are talking about, well, it's because these guys grow up together. AAU. Yeah, okay. So you're friendly off the court. What they got to do with on the court?
Thank you. Because there was people that was friends on the court. Michael Jordan held runs in Chicago every year with 20, 30 NBA players. Those guys were friends. You think he was going out there and saying, hey, buddy, when it was time to go and play, when it's time to go and lace them up in the game. No, he's trying to kill you. And we still have players like that. I think the problem is the in-between. It's the in-between of are we going hard or are we just, I'm just let you shoot. Or you're not going to try, or you're kind of trying right now, I'm going to let you. No, let somebody come out here and set the tone, pick somebody up full court. Now, I will say, and Rocky said this on Tuesday, I think the competitiveness of the All-Star game was better, but the format was horrible. Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Darius Garland, those guys were on the court for like 5 minutes because their team lost in like 5 minutes. So you waited all year to be an All-Star, and you played for 5 minutes. And then you just go sit in the crowd. I don't even know where they went after that. You just go sit in the crowd.
Just think about it from a fan standpoint. Mm-hmm. I voted to watch these guys, like I said, Jalen Brunson, I voted to watch these guys, and then I got to watch this rookie team go out here and play.
Because that was the longest game out of all the 3 games was the game that the rookie team was in. We saw more of Zach Edey than we saw of Anthony Edwards. That's an issue. They got to find a way to just get it back. Like you said, the first thing you said. How do we just get it back to just East versus West, rookie versus sophomore, picking people that we've seen dunk in a game for the dunk contest? I ain't even seen some of these dudes. I don't know what Andre Jackson dunks like. What is it? He's a corner 3 player.
I had a buddy of mine. Because your 3-time defending champion is not even a G leaguer. And I had a buddy of mine text me and said, "Hey, what kind of player is Max McClung?" And I text back, "He can't play.
He can't.
That's why he's in the G League. He can't play. But this is the face of your dunk contest. It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. We moved on from Vince Carter being the face of a dunk contest, Dwight Howard being – these were some of the best players in the league that were face of the dunk contest. And I know it's been messed up for years, but, man, we can't keep having G League. What, we going to have YouTubers next? We're going to have YouTube guys come out and dunk for the dunk contest? Like, this is getting crazy, man. This dude is barely in the league. This dude has played more time in a dunk contest than he's played in NBA games. Like, what are we doing? You think people wouldn't watch Ja Morant versus Anthony Edwards and Zion Williamson in a dunk contest? You think it wouldn't be competitive a little bit if you put a little bit more money up for East versus West? I'm not a fan of how the MLB does it with the winner of it gets home field advantage in the World Series, but at least it makes people play. Because if you got a chance to go out there and be in the World Series, I'm going to play. Even if you guys ain't going to do it, I'm going to play hard. And if somebody plays hard, that energy is going to be contagious. I don't know what they got to do to get it back competitive. I think put some more money up. But if you just go back to East versus West and really just talk to these dudes and say, hey, y'all, we've tried all this stuff because y'all want to come out here. And it ain't even really about being competitive. It's the fact that it's only dunks or threes. Are y'all going to do anything else? I don't even see anybody dribble. I'll just shoot from half court and brick, or I'll just go get a wide open dunk. There's nothing in between going on. So, man, they got to do something to fix that and to figure out that all-star game. Moving on to some NBA news. Bobby Porter suspended for 25 games for allegedly taking tramadol, or they found tramadol in his system in a drug test. He said he thought it was Toradol from the guy that prescribed it to him. Toradol is something that is prescribed that guys can take in the NBA, but tramadol is something that you can't take in the NBA that they actually just banned less than a year ago, and that was found in his system. And they suspended Bobby Portis 25 games. Now, I understand, you don't want guys doing whatever. First off, I think it's dumb to suspend somebody 25 games for a drug that was legal last year, and he's been in the NBA for 10 years. That's one. Second, you act like this dude's a pharmacist. He don't know what he's taking. He's taking a pill. They say, hey, give me a pill. What is it? Toradol. Ends up being tramadol. Now he's suspended 25 games. You going to take millions of dollars away from this dude for taking tramadol? When Toradol is terrible, too, it ain't like you're worried about their health. Toradol is terrible for you. Like, it's not like you're worried about these guys' health whatsoever. You're just worried about making a point with somebody and, we said this is banned, so now you get 25 games. Ain't like they found tramadol in the system 6 or 7 times. You found tramadol in the system once, and you banned him for pretty much that's the rest of the season. We're not going to see Bobby Portis to the playoffs now. That's a huge deal, man. I don't know what these guys are thinking. I think the punishment was a little too harsh with the 25 games. What do you think about Bobby Portis and his suspension?
Yeah, to address your 2 points. Number one, you have to know what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't just be so uninformed to where somebody that says here take this and you take it. You got to be more aware of that, especially when you know that the rules change. It's just because it's a new rule, it doesn't mean that it's not something that you don't have to abide by because it's brand new. Oh, I didn't know y'all changed that. That's not going to fly. And secondly, Bobby Portis needs to surround himself with a better team.
You got to fire whoever your pharmacist is.
Yeah. So like you say, he's not a pharmacist, and I get that. He has more important things on his mind than stuff like that. But he needs to have a better team in place to protect him from stuff like this, because the one thing that the league can't wait to do is make an example of somebody, especially when they pass a brand new rule. They want to show that they mean business. This is the law right now, and we mean business. And if you violate this law, we take this very seriously. So I'm not surprised that it was 25 games. It does seem a bit extreme. I agree with that. It does seem a bit extreme, but you can't just say that this is the league picking on Bobby Portis. He has to have some accountability in this as well.
Oh yeah. He's definitely got accountability in it, and I don't think they're picking on him. It's to your point. They're just making an example. We said no Tramadol, and nobody's popped up with Tramadol, and then you pop up and take it. Well, here's your example. 25 games. We're going to take some money away from you. And I bet don't nobody else take Tramadol now. If they were or wasn't taking it, ain't nobody else doing it now. They're going to ban it from every NBA locker room as they should have did already. But the 25 games I think was a little bit excessive. But like you said, you got to know what you're taking, man. I mean, you're an adult. You're 30-something years old. You got to know what you're taking. And unfortunately, it's going to cost him 25 games. Folks, the NBA is back in action tonight. We've got games going on already. Boston is taking on Philly over on TNT. Obviously, nobody wants to watch that because who wants to watch Philly? Memphis and Indiana are playing right now, and Orlando and Atlanta just got tipped off just a second ago. Last night, we got our first action with the NBA starting, and it was LeBron and the Lakers, Luka and the Lakers taking on LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets. That game was on last night. It was the only game on for the entire slate. They were replaying the game from when the wildfires were going on in L.A., so they had to come back a day early from All-Star break and play in this game. Charlotte Hornets ended up winning 100-97. There's not much news to make about that. Charlotte has only won 14 games this season. They win. I watched the game. They really lost just because nobody else on the Lakers wanted to do anything. LeBron scored like 12 straight points in the fourth quarter to bring them back. Rui Hachimura goes down there and misses a couple of free throws that could have tied the game up, and instead of tying the game up, he misses both free throws, and the Lakers lose. It's pretty much that simple. The part I wanted to talk about was Luka continues to struggle. Well, first, before I talk about that, LeBron James dunked on, that was almost bullying how bad he dunked on Mark Williams, and then looked at him after the dunk, knowing that we just traded for you, and then we had to trade you back because you got a paperback, and your back didn't pass any type of physicals. So we had to get you back to the Hornets and send you back to purgatory to play for the Charlotte Hornets. And then you get dunked on by LeBron. Yeah, this is a bad couple of weeks if you're Mark Williams. Your news gets spread out, blasted to the public that we had to get you back because you ain't healthy. You come back on the Hornets, you're saying, oh, it was my first game back. Let me make a mark since y'all tried to trade me. And you get posterized by a 40-year-old. So he's not having the best of time right now. But Luka Doncic continues to struggle. The Lakers started to struggle. I think the Hornets went on a 22-1 run, something like that. Because Austin Reeves got ejected in the third quarter. I don't even know how Austin Reeves gets ejected. I've never even seen him yell at anybody. But Luka Doncic continued to struggle, 5 for 18, 1 for 9 from 3. Had 11 boards. He had 8 assists. We know he can do that. He was still plus 13 on his plus and minus. Only 14 points, though. And LeBron James had to take the potential game-tying shot because Luka has been off in this game. Luka's still trying to get his legs under him. He's coming off an injury. He's only played a couple of games since Christmas Day when he went out in that Christmas Day game. He's only played a couple of games since then, so he's still trying to get his legs under him. What doesn't help is the narratives that the Lakers aren't going to be able to guard anybody because Luka is going to be bad. And last night, in that fourth quarter, he was getting absolutely cooked by LaMelo Ball. I don't know how they ended up how he kept ending up on him. They were trying to find the switch. They were match hunting and kept finding Luka, and he got cooked like 4 or 5 plays in a row by LaMelo, including the game-winning basket from LaMelo on a floater that he got right past Luka on, and it was extremely easy. What do you think about the Lakers and the new-look Lakers, I guess you could say, with Luka in there, and Luka's struggle so far as he started as a Laker?
They don't look very promising right now. There's 2 main things that are really going to be impediments to them going forward. Number one is the health of Luka Doncic. Is he going to ever get to the point to where he is going to be healthy enough to where he looks like the Luka from last season that we saw take the Mavs to the NBA Finals? Or is he going to, because the knock is on his conditioning. They say he doesn't rehab hard and things like that. So if that's really true, then this may be what you get out of Luka the rest of the season. He's out again right now. So I don't know how much he's going to be able to contribute and actually help LeBron. Number two, the main problem, they don't have a rim protector. They don't have a rim protector, and that's going to be an issue, going forward, especially when you got to play, teams like Denver and OKC. You gotta find somebody to protect the rim. Mark Williams would have been great in that role because that's really all they would really need him to do. But the fact that he felt that physical and had to go back, that really kind of set them back a little bit. To me, I've heard people talk about, look at the all the way up to number 2 seed. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. Considering you just lost to Charlotte, and then the loss before that was Utah. I just don't see that. Maybe they might be able to hold on for 7 or 8, but they look like a play-in team to me at best right now, at this point anyway, especially with the way Luka is right now.
Yeah, if Luka's got to get healthy, and it's got to be quick, because the Lakers, they're already going to be down defensively. They've shown they can score. The problem with the trade, and you have to make the trade. You get a chance to get Luka. The problem is you were playing your best basketball of the season. I think their last 10 games they were top 5 in defense. And then you make a trade and it shakes up everything. You get a guy like Mark Williams, and then you got to trade him back because he can't pass the physical. And like you said, that sets you back whenever you can't do that. Problem with the Lakers this year, and this was a move for the future. This Luka trade wasn't about this year because it wasn't even enough time for them to build a team around what they're trying to do. It's more the future. But the problem for them this year is the size. The rim protection is not only going to hurt them, it's going to kill them when it gets into playoff time. Right now they're number 5 in the West. All the rest of the top 6 seeds, which are the solidified playoff spots, outside of Houston, everybody else has size. Oklahoma City is getting Chet Holmgren back, who's going to move to the 4, and he's 7'1". They're going to play him and Isaiah Hartenstein together. That's going to be scary. Memphis has been playing so well. They're number 2 in the West because of their size. They're starting a Zach Edey, who's 7'2", 7'3". Jaren Jackson, who's having his best season of his career. He's 7 foot. Denver's got Jokic. And the Clippers have got Zubac. So all these guys have size except for the Lakers. And that's going to be their biggest problem moving forward in this season. Like you said, they got to find a way to get some rim protection. Well, it's not a find a way. That's just what's going to hurt them, honestly. They got Jackson Hayes and they got Alex Len, and I think Alex Len is going to be a decent addition for them, but it's not going to be enough to move the needle, man. The Lakers are going to go home in the first or second round, really just because of their interior. It just depends on matchup. They play Denver first round, they're going home first round. They play one of these young teams, they got a chance to manipulate some of those guys and take advantage of some matchups and maybe win some games, but without that rim protection, it's going to be tough for the Lakers. We are coming out of All-Star break as we get ready to wrap up the show here. Coming out of All-Star break, want to look at some of these teams that are going to be dangerous now coming out of All-Star break. Teams have made their moves. We've gotten past the trade deadline. These are the teams. These are the teams right here who are you going to have. There's no more trades. You maybe could pick somebody up in free agency. But for the most part, your squad right now is your squad that you're going to have. Seth, I'm going to start with you, man. Who are some teams that you're looking at, East or West, that you really think can make some noise in this last third of the season? Only about 20-something games left in the season, this last third of the season. Who's some teams that can really make some noise?
Yeah, I thought that what the Bucks did with picking up Kuzma, I thought that was a good move for them.
Yep.
So because they have a legitimate big three with him and Dame and Giannis. So I look for the Bucks to make a move in the East. Right now, Cleveland is kind of running away with it, and of course Boston is still Boston. But I look for the Bucks to make a significant move up. To be finishing in that top 3 by the time playoffs come. And in the West, believe it or not, it's a team that nobody's really talking about, but they've been playing really well lately. I like the Clippers to make a move, especially with the Rockets kind of seeming like they're in a little bit of a decline right now.
Yep.
I look for the Clippers to make a move and maybe challenge Denver for that number 3 spot. Denver, of course, they're right there. They're the hottest team in the league. They won like 8 in a row. But I think OKC is legit at the top. Memphis is feisty enough to maybe stave Denver off. But the 2 teams I think are going to make a move is the Bucks and the Clippers.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on both of those picks, man, because the 2 teams that you just named are 2 teams that nobody wants to play. If you're in the East, I don't care what you say. Every single team in that East is scared of Giannis. The Celtics, yeah, it's cool. They've been winning, and I still think the Celtics are the favorite to come back and be able to win again because they've got the veteran experience, they got the defense, and they got the offense to be able to match anybody scoring. But you got through that playoffs last year and didn't have to play Giannis. Nobody wants to play Giannis. There's not a person in the East that can guard Giannis. And then you couple that with the Dame that can still get you 25. And if Kyle Kuzma can just give you 17, 18 points, you'll be good because Chris Middleton really ain't played basketball in 2 or 3 years because he's always hurt. So if Kuzma can give you 17, 18 points, that's going to be really good. And they got a really sneaky, solid addition in the trade deadline, and that was getting Kevin Porter Jr., a guy that was averaging close to 20 points for the Rockets before he got into some trouble off the court with some domestic violence issues, had to wash out the league for a year, came back on the Clippers and played well. He's going to be a huge player for them coming off that bench because he finally provides some scoring off the bench for the Bucks. So I love your pick with the Milwaukee Bucks, man, because nobody wants to play Giannis. He's a walking 30, 15, and 3 blocks whenever he plays. And as far as the Clippers, they've been overplaying this whole year. I said before the season started, James Harden was going to cook everybody when you put the ball back in his hands. People thought like he couldn't play anymore. Now, the dude can still play. They've got a lot of great role players. Norman Powell should have been an all-star. He's averaging 25 points a game. And their addition that they made was getting Kawhi back. Like, they got their best player back just overnight out of nowhere. And he gets to come back into that lineup. They've got depth on that team. They've got size with guys like Zubac down low in the middle. Man, the Clippers are a scary team. Teams I'm looking out for coming out of this break, the main team that I'm looking at in the East is the New York Knicks. If the Knicks can stay healthy, the Knicks are going to be a problem for teams to beat. They've got wing defenders. They've got great guard play with Jalen Brunson. I love McBride that comes off the bench. Karl Towns is having a career year. At the beginning of the season, I didn't know which way to lean, who won the trade between Julius Randle and going to Timberwolves or Cat going to New York. It's clearly the Knicks. Karl Towns is playing phenomenal basketball right now. He's shooting the ball well. He's rebounding the ball well. They've strangely enough to say they've got to get a little bit better on defense. You don't say that for a Tibbs team. My only problem is the reason why I don't like Tibbs as a coach is he runs his guys into the ground every single year. Every year he runs his guys into the ground. Last year the Knicks were good. But by the time they played their last playoff game, every starter was hurt on the team. All 5 were hurt because they lead the league in minutes. This year, they lead the league in minutes. I think out of the top 10 minute players in the league, 4 or 5 of them are on the Knicks. Like, that's an issue, man. Why do you play these guys so many minutes? You think he would have learned his lesson because he does it every single year, starting with Derrick Rose's injury. You're playing these dudes 45, 46 minutes a game, even if they're up by 15, 20 points. The whole starters are still in the game. I don't know why Tibbs does it, but if they can find a way to stay healthy, the Knicks are going to be a super dangerous team. And my team out of the West, I love your pick about the Clippers, man. And mine is the Denver Nuggets. I know Jokic didn't win last year, and even though he won the MVP, man, Jokic is playing. He's a 3-time MVP, and he might be playing the best basketball of his career this year, which is crazy to say. Dude is averaging a triple-double right now. Yeah, like Denver is a scary team. Russell Westbrook, I'm glad he got on this team because I've even battled with Kyrell, who comes on the show all the time, about how he's saying how terrible Russell Westbrook is in his wash and all this stuff. Russell can still play. They inserted him in that starting lineup, and they've taken off ever since. This is a team that started off like 1-7. They were at the bottom of the West, and now they're looking at the 3rd spot in the West and probably going to be the number 2 seed in the West. Nobody wants to play the Denver Nuggets right now because nobody wants to guard Jokic right now.
Yeah, and then there are always going to be teams to contend with. The only thing that I don't like about, I wish they had more depth. You know what I mean?
Yes,
I wish they had more depth.
This
is why I like the Clippers a little bit because they can bring in a Bogdanovich off the bench. Ben Simmons is playing good ball with no pressure with no pressure. Ben Simmons is a whole different player.
He's going to be great for the Clippers.
And then they have veterans like Nick Batum. You know what I mean? So I think that because of the Clippers have more depth, I kind of give them at the edge a little bit over Denver when it comes down to the playoffs. But you're absolutely right. Nobody's playing better than Jokic right now.
Yeah, the Joker's playing great, and it's crazy to say that with how great he's been playing. Folks, we're pretty much out of time here today. I want to look at a couple of these games here tonight and just talk about some of the matchups coming on tonight. As the NBA is back in action tonight, multiple games already going on right now. One of them I want to look at is the Clippers in Milwaukee. We just got done talking about both of these teams. Clippers playing great. Milwaukee playing great. Also, Bobby Portis is going to hurt them. I am excited to see with everybody back in action, if Giannis is going to be playing, how are these guys going to go out there? Norman Powell's not playing tonight, but Giannis, who sat out in the All-Star game, is going to be playing. Who you like in this one? Clippers playing at Milwaukee, playing the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, with Giannis coming back and no Norman Powell for the Clippers, I'm going to have to go with Milwaukee. I think I would take Milwaukee in the points at home. They're a home dog.
Yeah.
So if Giannis comes back, definitely take Milwaukee and the points.
Yeah, I like Milwaukee being able to pull out that game as well too. I think with, like you said, no Norman Powell coming back, they're at home. Giannis got to sit out and get a week break in the middle of the season, which probably feels like a month when you're a superstar like Giannis. Getting that week break is really going to help them. Phoenix and San Antonio. We didn't talk about this, but Victor Wembanyama going to be out for the season with the blood clot that he got up in his upper shoulder. So that's I hate to hear that news because the Spurs just made the move with De'Aaron Fox. But definitely hope that Wemby goes out there and can get healthy, man, and his time off. But they're playing the Suns tonight. No Wemby. Suns, a team that's just scrambling. If they don't get wins and get wins soon, they're going to blow this entire team up. So they should feel that sense of urgency coming back into this game. So I like Phoenix in this game.
I'm gonna take the Spurs. I think because we've seen De'Aaron Fox be capable of carrying a team on his back. Now he can't do it for a whole season, but he can take over a game. And so and it's so sad to hear about Wemby. That's just crushing. This is definitely one of the probably the best rookie. I mean, the best young player in the league, probably in the world. To be honest with you, so he's just a phenomenal talent. I think a heavy dose of De'Aaron Fox, plus the fact that the Phoenix locker room, there's issues there. They hurt a lot of feelings, when they tried to move Durant and then couldn't pull it off, and they just don't seem to be very cohesive right now. So I'm gonna take the Spurs to pull it off at home. I'll take the Spurs and the points at home.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that, man. That Phoenix Suns locker room is in shambles right now. You tried to trade Durant, messed up whatever little bit of chemistry you had. Then you come out and pretty much say, well, we tried to trade Durant because nobody in the league would take Bradley Beal. So now he's mad. So I don't know what's going on in Phoenix with their locker room situation. But if they don't turn it around, this whole thing is getting blown up. Last one is a game tomorrow. We're not going to be on tomorrow, so I want to talk about this one. New York versus Cleveland. This is a battle for really the top dogs in the East. I'm interested to watch this one because everybody's gotten their all-star break. They've got their rest. These are the last stretch of the season. So both teams are going to be taking this super serious. Two of the better teams in the NBA, New York and Cleveland in this one. They haven't put the line out just yet for this game tomorrow because they're waiting to see what the injury is going to look like. But I like Cleveland in this one just because New York is still battling some issues and Cleveland's at home in this game. Who you like, New York or Cleveland tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you just because now if New York was totally healthy, if they had Mitchell Robinson and guys like that already back, that would be some kind of tilt there. Yeah. Defense versus offense. Cleveland's number one offense in the league. They're at home. New York is kind of banged up. Yeah, give me the cash.
Yeah, I like Cleveland in that game too. Folks, we're out of time here today. Want to thank everybody for checking in with us on Centex Primetime over on YouTube. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook and Twitter with us as well. We'll be back next week as we break down some more NBA news. We'll talk some more about this NFL offseason moves. We're getting closer to the draft, closer to free agency starting. So we got plenty to talk about here on Centex Primetime. MCC basketball and baseball this weekend right here on Centex Sports Network. So make sure you get ready for that. Want to thank Sad for jumping on here with me here today. We will be back on Monday in action right here on Centex Primetime. We will see you guys then. Everybody have a great weekend.
Lighthouse Streaming, a full-scale media agency and your go-to source for all things audio and video. Is your church long overdue for audio and video upgrades? Call Lighthouse Streaming for a free consultation. Does your corporate or church event need audio or video production? Don't stress. Call the guys at Lighthouse Streaming. In business since 2017, Lighthouse Streaming has produced hundreds of live events and completed dozens of church and venue installations. Whatever your AV needs are, Lighthouse Streaming has you covered. Give them a call at 254-252 254-252-4206. That's 254-252-4206. Or go to